We could come up with a lot of stories of the afterlife of intolerance. One of the wildest ones, the most interesting one to my mind, is the way that it was used to promote a new royal dynasty in the mid-1920s. Just before the Film Arts Guild screening, just before the revival of his films, moving back to spring of 1926, Intolerance, or at least a fragment of Intolerance, the Babylonian Narrative from that film, was playing on cinema screens in Tehran in celebration of the Persian New Year. And it's interesting because the film had a different title. First of all, this wasn't the entire film of Intolerance. It was only the Babylonian Narrative. Griffith, in 1919, had tried to recoup some of the costs of Intolerance and tried to make a more commercially marketable version by cutting out and editing together just this Babylonian narrative, which he titled The Fall of Babylon. And that circulated pretty widely, and it was really popular. And it was particularly popular in Iran, where it was retitled Cyrus the Great Conquering Babylon. So a slightly different inflection there. There were a lot of critics in the newspapers in Tehran who heralded this as the great film of ancient Persian history. They screened it over and over again. They screened it every New Year. I found several examples of this in Iranian newspapers of the time, and they linked the film with a number of the kind of marketing strategies that Griffith himself used when the film was first released. In many cases, when this film played on screens in Tehran, the film critics and the advertisers adapted some of Griffith's own rhetoric of promotion of the film, and that included Griffith's idea that they came from ancient scrolls, or that they were assembled from real legal documents in history. And there were a lot of intertitles in these films that suggested that. He started this with Birth of a Nation, but it really in Intolerance, the discussion of ancient Babylon was as historically authentic, was picked up by the press in Iran. The biggest irony of the afterlife of Intolerance in Iran is the way that the film is mistranslated. And I mentioned that the title is different, but it's not just that the title was changed a little bit, it's that the entire meaning of the Babylonian narrative was turned on its head in this reception in Tehran. So I want to start with just another advertisement for this New Year's screening of the film at the Grand Cinema. New Year's festivities at the Grand Cinema on Wednesday and Thursday, the first 2 evenings of spring. Film, Cyrus the Great, Conquering Babylon. The Grand Cinema, the preeminent film exhibition hall, has organized an event to honor our customers and celebrate our Iranian history on this special occasion of the new year. We will show the famous film, Cyrus the Great, about the conqueror whose name is the pride of Iran and Iranians. No one who is interested in this story should delay in seeing the film. I should say that the narrative of Intolerance and of the Fall of Babylon, in which the Persian army represents this kind of warlike intolerance of the era, is turned on its head, so that this becomes a story of the growth of a civilization, the growth of the great ancient Persian civilization. So rather than the lessons of catastrophe, the story is about the pride of an ancient civilization. As far as I can tell, Griffith had no idea that this screening was going on in Tehran, even though it was right around the same time as the revival of Intolerance and many of his other films in New York City. But I think that's really the important thing to think about with these films, is that that this afterlife is really unpredictable. I want to believe that he was he would have been welcoming of this iteration of intolerance in the Tehran context, because if you just look at the correspondence between him and the International Film Arts Guild, you really see somebody who's interested in bringing the film back to life by whatever means necessary. And that's precisely what's happening in the Tehran context. The film is adapting itself, you know, with the help obviously of the people who are receiving it, but it's transforming for this new audience, and it continues to transform for new audiences every time it's re-released, every time it's adapted, every time you know, somebody records commentary about the film.